So apparently they're making a second Freaky Friday movie. Not a reboot, thank God, although, of course, the classic from 2003 was not the original either. But wow, apparently Disney has actually milked this franchise before. There seems to be a Disney Channel movie from the 2010s. We're not watching that. But I'm just hyped to see that this classic is getting a part 2. I have a lot of nostalgia wrapped up in this film. When I was a kid, on the school holidays when I was little, my parents were at work, I'd get sent to this holiday care program run by student teachers at a university. And after a couple of hours, inevitably we'd have an hour or two blocked out of their schedule to watch a movie. We watched a bunch of classics from the 90s and recent releases from the early 2000s, all of the classics that everybody knew and loved in that era. And this was one of them. And so, when there was news that there was going to be a sequel, whilst I have been and am still a little bit apprehensive about it all, after all, what if it sucks and just tarnishes the legacy of the film that they originally made, I'm also really optimistic and eager to see what they cook up. With that being said, it's still a good long while till we get Freakier Friday, not until 2025 sadly, so I thought, hey, why not gush about a childhood classic that gets me pumped up with nostalgia? And yeah, let's take a look at Freaky Friday, shall we? I don't know why, but before I went back to watch and take a look at this movie again after a long time, I kind of thought it was going to be one of those films that, whilst they're clearly very popular and did well at the box office and with audiences, that critics were going to find it bad and treat it accordingly. So often these days we're starting to see that disparity between the opinions of film critics and with the wider audience, and pretty much always, I find myself siding with the audience. I mean, what are some of these critics smoking? Deeper themes? You're watching Minions, bro. Pull your head out of your ass. That's not what it's trying to be. But anyway, sidetracked. It is nice to see one of my nostalgic favourites well received by critics. In terms of its critical score, it's sitting pretty on 88% on Rotten Tomatoes, and not only that, but it did well at the box office too, grossing $160 million off $26 million. Lindsay Lohan was still going strong and was putting out banger after banger after banger. Imagine what she would have accomplished if she didn't go off the rails for a good decade or so. Although I'm hyped she's on this comeback tour now. Jamie Lee Curtis, top tier actress, the granddad from Master of Disguise, a train wreck of a film with very few redeeming features, but one that I love nonetheless. Then there's Gibbs from NCIS. Oh, another blast from the past. Does he still star in NCIS? Do they still make that show? Okay, just googled it. Seems like they do, but his character's now retired. Oh, end of an era. But back to Freaky Friday. Well received, or you'd think so, wouldn't you? But then I'm looking at the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. 58%? 58? Bruh. These are just egregious. I'm sorry, wider audience. I don't usually side against you, but I honestly think this is the wrong opinion. Oh, but Smarty Pants, there's no such thing as a wrong opinion. Actually, I think you'll find there is, and this is it. I'm actually a bit shaken up by this. I'm feeling a bit like Principal Skinner right now.
Am I so out of touch?
Is the movie bad? Did audiences dislike it at the time, or is it one of those instances where in the years since, it's just collected more and more bad reviews as it ages? Either way, they're wrong, tough luck. I love this movie, this is childhood, this is nostalgia. Time to go through it and revel in the glorious nostalgia of 2003. Okay, so the film begins with one of the most early 2000s film devices ever. A classic song that transitions into a more modern rock cover over the top of a montage of our two leads. Here we have Happy Together. And we watch Annie and her mother Tess as they wake up and get ready for the day. One as a psychiatrist and the other at high school. Also, where do they live there would be that light at 6 a.m? My God, look how bright it is there. I love how the film pretends like she's a generic lazy teen here, but in actuality, getting up that early sucks and is really hard. But yeah, this is an all-timer of a montage, setting the scene, rebellious teen, the prim, proper working mum, completing the picture with the annoying younger sibling, who blasts an air horn in his sister's ear to wake her up. Woof, my God. How many people do you reckon saw this kind of stuff in films back then and ended up giving their siblings or parents tinnitus or a burst eardrum? Also, on the way to school, this fun teen comedy shows its age when the mum says she doesn't want her daughter to have a piercing as it would make her look like a harlot, aka a whore, aka a slut. Woof! That's something I always find amusing in older films. When you hear something or see something that feels completely alien to what would be acceptable in a film in this day and age from a character who's being framed as kind and reasonable. Mostly. And yeah, first we get a look at Anna's life at school, which sucks. That's right, the film wants us to believe that Lindsay Lohan is at the bottom of the school totem pole. Her and her friends are pretty much walking embodiments of the era, like the director thought, we need all the various different stereotypical stock characters of the high school experience of the early 2000s to appear in a single scene. Also, some of these teens were clearly not teens. Like, you see that today even now, but it doesn't feel like they even tried very hard to make it seem this way. But yeah, her life sucks, bullied, students, teachers bully her. The dude she likes seems to think she's a bit of a dork. And she's always in detention, but hey, there's still hope, because then she bonds with the hunk from earlier about playing guitar. And he's vibing for her hard, he's gonna ask her out. I mean, how old is this dude, by the way? And then she gets cock-blocked by the bully teacher, but Hope is still alive. Meanwhile, her mum's busy planning her wedding to Agent Gibbs, but the big point of contention is that Anna's band has a big opportunity on the same night as Tessa's rehearsal dinner for her wedding. Uh-oh, date clash, and they have one day to figure this shit out. Also, this first segment, both leads play their roles to perfection. It just sets the stage, really. Everything about this film has aged so well in terms of its visuals and soundscape. But let's be real. The main draw is the ridiculous story, which, yes, it is ridiculous, but that's by design. The idea of body swapping your parent and having to live their life whilst also having your own personality intact is wild and funny, and here it's executed very well. But here, where the film really stands out, is in the acting of Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis. At first, they play such archetypal characters, the prim, proper mother and the rebellious teen. But after the body switch, things begin to change. And each actress has to do their own version of the different character. And Lindsay, this is her golden era. She's great in everything from my childhood, and this is no exception. I mean, shit, her first role on film was The Parent Trap, which saw her play two characters who looked the same and yet sound and behave differently. And for a child actress on debut, she did damn well there. Truly insane how good that film is. Yet another banger. And she does well here too. But in all honesty, I think I'm more impressed with Jamie Lee Curtis. She's playing an angsty teen in the bottle of a middle-aged woman, and just not even giving a shit about hiding her personality, and it's glorious. So well performed. I especially loved her awkwardness and the cringe factor surrounding her interactions with Agent Gibbs, and how that contrasts with her original interactions with him as Tess. But anyway, before all that, we have the body swap scenario, which I don't think would pass the sniff test in current year. They pretty much get spiked by an old Chinese lady with magical fortune cookies that get them to swap bodies. And this leads them to have to live a day in the other's shoes, with both coming to realise that life isn't so easy for the other, with Tess especially coming to the realisation that maybe she's too hard on her daughter, as her life does suck. And then, of course, all of this culminates in them finally seeing eye to eye, and after Tess decides to do the concert, and thus forcing Anna as Tess to play backstage since Tess as Anna doesn't know how to play guitar, they then swap back. Oh, and along the way, Anna and her brother's sibling relationship is fixed, and Jake proves that he legitimately likes Anna for Anna, because he's originally vibing her at the start, and then when they swap bodies, he falls for the mum because she has Anna's personality and that's what attracts him, and yikes. But yeah, the plot is absolutely batshit insane, filled with all the classic tropes of the era, sneaking into Chain's test scores, dropping the mic on rude teachers, dating the handsome bro type character who actually has a heart of gold, reading a secret diary or whatever of somebody you don't get along with, which changes your perspective on them. It's a bit generic, but at the same time it worked for its era, and now it's a fun little time capsule. It's a look back at the best of the early noughties type deal. Ugh, noughties. Especially with the production design and the sound design. But yeah, like I said, this film, it's carried by the performances, especially the leads, their mannerisms, how they shift them when they change personalities. It's just so good. And so I'm looking forward to even more of this in the sequel. But there's also a number of really well done minor characters that are memorable and help tie the film together really well. Evan the anxiety patient, another character who I don't think passes muster anymore. Agent Gibbs, in the most calm and soothing role I've ever seen him play. Granted, I've only ever seen him in NCIS, so it is what it is. But yeah, this movie, I love it. I don't care if people think it sucks, because it doesn't. You're wrong. Deal with it. I'm still in shock that it was poorly received, or that it could be looked back on as bad at all. I know it's clearly popular enough that it's managed to get a sequel off the ground 20 years later, but I'm still mega salty, and I'm not ashamed to admit that fact. So before I embarrass myself anymore, let's call it quits with this. The film slaps. Deal with it. And so with all that being said, these have just been my opinions, and I'd like to hear yours. What do you think of Freaky Friday? Do you like it? Hate it? Do you agree with what I've said? Have anything else to add? I'm curious of your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.